for someone that their pain became your own? Have you ever tried to help others so much that somewhere along the way you forgot yourself? In our desire to heal the world, we often lose the quiet center of our own hearts. That we drown in other sorrow, it teaches us to stand steady like a calm lake, reflecting both joy and suffering without being disturbed. Today, let us explore how one can truly help others without losing the peace within. Not merely an emotional reaction, it is the natural fragrance that arises from a mind free of selfishness and ignorance. Compassion, or karuho, is one of the four sublime states. Alongside loving kindness, sympathetic joy, when not guided by wisdom, can easily turn into attachment, sorrow, or emotional fatigue. Many people mistake compassion for carrying the burdens of others or losing themselves in the suffering around them. True compassion, however, understanding the nature of suffering, its cause, and the path leading beyond it. When we help others, we often do so out of love and care, but if that love is mixed with craving or identification, it becomes unbalanced. One may begin to think their happiness depends on me. In that subtle moment, ego slips in under the name of kindness. The Buddha warned that clinging even to good deeds can bind the mind and create an illusion that we are responsible for the world's pain. The wise one understands that while we can offer support, we cannot remove another's karma or walk their path for them. We can only guide, inspire, and love. To help others without losing oneself, one must first cultivate awareness of one's own mind. When you act from mindfulness, your actions arise not from emotional impulse, but from understanding. You see suffering, and naturally, compassion flows. You recognize the impermanence of all conditions, the pain of others, your own response, the act of giving itself. All are transient waves on the ocean of existence. When you see this clearly, you no longer drown in the emotions of others. Many people, in their eagerness to help, forget to breathe. They absorb the pain around them and carry it as their own. But a wise person knows that taking on another's suffering is not true compassion. But as followers, to understand suffering deeply, when understanding arises, compassion becomes like a clear stream. It nourishes others without becoming muddy itself. The heart that helps from clarity does not burn out. It glows steadily. In Buddhist thought, compassion and wisdom are like two wings of a bird. With only one, flight is impossible. Compassion moves the heart, wisdom directs it. Without wisdom, compassion may lead us astray, causing us to act out of guilt, fear, or pity. Selfless and free from the illusion of control. Wisdom reminds us that every being must awaken through their own understanding, and our role is to assist with gentleness, not force. Imagine a doctor treating a patient, but he knows he cannot live the patient's life or absorb the illness. His duty is to provide medicine, care, and guidance. Whether the patient takes the medicine or not is beyond the doctor's control. This is the balance of compassion with wisdom. With limit is in the same way, with limitless compassion but complete detachment. His heart was open, but his mind was serene. He saw all things arise and pass away according to their causes and conditions. When you help others, you're feeling drained, resentful, or anxious. If so, it may mean that your compassion has become entangled with attachment. In that moment, return to your breath. See that you are not the savior of the world. You are a part of the vast web of life. On one pair of shoulders, but it can be transformed by countless acts of wise compassion. Every time you act with awareness and love, you plant a seed of peace. In Buddhist practice, one learns to extend compassion without losing equanimity, even to those who may not appreciate or return it, but you do not allow their response to shake your heart. Whether they accept your help or reject it, your compassion remains steady. This balance protects you from emotional exhaustion. It allows you to be present for others without being consumed by their suffering. There is a beautiful teaching that says, the one who understands sorrow does not sink into it. This means that the awakened heart feels the pain of the world deeply, but does not drown in it. Both joy and sorrow without clinging to either. Such a heart can sit beside a suffering friend, listen with empathy, and yet remain at peace. It does not rush to fix, to advise, or to absorb. A silent compassion that itself is healing. To cultivate this kind of compassion, one must first develop mindfulness and meditation. When the mind is calm, it sees clearly, it can hold the pain of others gently, like a mother holding a crying child. The mother does not become the child's cry, she simply holds it where the mindful person holds the world's pain without losing the stillness within. Another important aspect is self-compassion. Often people forget that they, too, endlessly until their hearts become empty. Buddhism teaches that you cannot pour from an empty cup. When you nourish your own heart with peace, meditation, and understanding, your compassion becomes sustainable. Helping others then arises from fullness. Selfish, it is the foundation of lasting service. When you help others with wisdom, you understand that everyone walks their unique path of growth. You can offer guidance, but you cannot hurry their awakening. Patience becomes your companion. It must produce immediate results. The act of helping itself becomes an offering, pure, unconditional, and free of reward. In this way, compassion becomes a form of meditation in action. Every kind word, every gentle deed. In Buddhist monasteries, even the smallest acts, sweeping the floor, offering food, caring for the sick, are done with awareness and detachment. The monk or nun does not think, I am helping. They simply act because it is wholesome. When helping others becomes natural and ego-free, it no longer drains the spirit. It uplifts both giver and receiver. To not lose yourself while helping others means to remain rooted in awareness, not in emotion. Universal and impermanent, and that your role is to bring light where darkness prevails, not by taking on the darkness, but by staying luminous. Compassion guided by wisdom is like the sun. It shines on all without choosing, without attachment. When this understanding becomes deep, helping others is no longer a burden or duty. It becomes a joy, a sacred expression of interconnectedness. You see that in serving others, you are serving yourself. This realization brings peace to the heart and clarity of the mind, allowing compassion to flow endlessly, gentle, wise, and free. The middle path, known in Pali as Majjhima Patipada, is one of the most profound and essential teachings of the Buddha. It is the way of balance, the way of harmony, and the way that avoids the extremes that lead to suffering. This path reminds us not to fall in the trap of excess or deficiency. It is neither indulgence nor self-denial, neither cold detachment nor blind sacrifice. It is a gentle, no respond to each moment wisely without losing peace within. When we extend help to others, our hearts often swing between two extremes. On one side, there is the desire to give endlessly, to save everyone, to forget our own needs completely. On the other, protect oneself so much that compassion becomes limited or closed off. The middle path teaches that true service lies between these two: giving without losing yourself, caring without attachment, and loving without expectation. Realizing that neither luxury nor severe austerity leads to liberation. Before enlightenment, he practiced intense asceticism, torturing his body with fasting and deprivation, believing it would bring awakening. Clouded, he saw the futility of extremes. He accepted food, regained his strength, and meditated under the Bodhi tree, where he attained enlightenment. From that realization came the great truth: liberation. Compassion has from the middle path. This balance does not mean mediocrity or indifference. It is not standing halfway between good and bad. Rather, it is a dynamic equilibrium, a living, breathing wisdom that responds to life with clarity. When helping others, to act with intention, but not to lose inner calm in the process, it reminds us that to truly be of service must remain centered in awareness, not tossed by emotion or ego. Many people, out of good intention, overextend themselves. Resentful or lost, they think self-sacrifice is the highest at virtue. But in Buddhism, such one-sidedness leads to imbalance. If you light a lamp for others but neglect to add oil, eventually the flame dies out. The middle path says, maintain the inner oil of mindfulness, rest, and reflection. Without this, your giving becomes strained and your compassion loses its purity. In contrast, some people, fearing pain or disappointment, become too cautious. Thinking, I must protect myself. They confuse detachment with indifference. But detachment in Buddhism is not coldness, it is clarity. It means caring deeply but without clinging, and not be consumed by it. To avoid both burnout and apathy, one must walk the middle path, the balance of compassion and calmness. The middle path also teaches moderation and emotional involvement. We help others, feeling responsible for their happiness or suffering when things don't change as we hoped. This attachment creates inner tension and sadness. A mind practicing the middle path helps with pure intention and then lets go of results. It says, it'll not control outcomes. This gentle surrender frees the heart. It allows compassion to be continuous and sustainable, not a source of stress. In Buddhism, all actions arise from the state of the mind. If the mind is unbalanced, the middle path begins with inner balance, observing our thoughts, emotions, and motivations. Before helping someone, pause and ask, am I acting from clarity or compulsion? Am I doing this to truly help or to feel needed or validated? So eventually take on entrapment. It keeps the act of helping pure and peaceful. The middle path also acknowledges impermanence. Every situation, every person we help, every emotion, all are constantly changing. When we forget this truth, help must bring lasting results. But the Buddha taught that everything changes and no effort is wasted even if results fade. A flower blooms for a day, yet its fragrance touches many. In the same way, one act of kindness, however small, helps us appreciate this impermanence without frustration, allowing us to serve with patience and equanimity. In the practice of giving, or dina, balance is also crucial. Generosity is one of the highest virtues. The giver, the gift, and the receiver should all be seen with wisdom. If you give beyond your means, ignoring your own well-being, suffering arises. If you give unwillingly or with pride, the act loses its purity. Mean joy within your capacity, without attachment whether the help is accepted or not. Your heart remains peaceful. The middle path extends to speech as well. When helping others, we must choose words that heal, not harm. Advice: the middle path teaches right speech, to speak at the right time, in the right way, for the right purpose. When someone is in pain, rushing to correct or fix them may cause more hurt, reminding us that understanding comes through patience. The balanced heart listens before it speaks, and in that listening, healing often begins. In the same way, the middle path applies to thought. When we help others, I'm not one helping, or they owe me gratitude, disturb the balance. True service is egoless. The middle path removes the sense of I and mine from good deeds. Helping becomes a natural flow, not because it wants reward, but because it is its nature to give. To remain in balance while serving others, one must practice meditation. Through meditation, the mind becomes steady and spacious, fall without being carried away by them. When you sit quietly, observing the breath, you cultivate the equanimity, the ability to stay calm amidst chaos. Then when you enter the world to help others, you carry that stillness with you. You act, you do not suffer from. This is the essence of the middle path. Imagine a lotus growing in a muddy pond. The lotus is not stained by the mud. It rises above, blooming in purity. The mud is life suffering, the pain, confusion. The lotus is your balanced mind, rooted in wisdom, nourished by mindfulness, blossoming with compassion. It touches the world without losing its clarity. This is the image of the middle path, living in the world yet not bound by it. The middle path also includes self-understanding. You must know your limits, your energy, and your capacity. To help beyond your ability is to harm yourself and eventually others. Sometimes the most compassionate act is to rest, to replenish. In Buddhism, withdrawal is not escaping, it's renewal. Just as a tree sheds leaves to grow again, the heart must sometimes withdraw from the world's noise to restore its strength. Then, when you return, your compassion is deeper, your presence calmer. Balance understanding that not every situation requires intervention. Helping others does not always mean doing something. Sometimes the most profound help is simply being, sitting beside someone in silence, listening without judgment. This is the middle path in action: doing without forcing, giving without clinging, guiding without controlling. Walking the middle path is not easy. They make us feel secure. Either we are completely giving, completely detached. Balance demands awareness in every moment. It asks you to stay present, to know you are slipping into excess or neglect. Through mindfulness, again and again, this is not a single act but a lifelong practice, a rhythm of giving and resting, speaking and listening, acting and being still. In essence, the middle path is the art of harmony. It teaches that in serving others, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom, when the heart is balanced, every act becomes sacred. You help others not to escape your own pain, but to express your inner peace. You give not to feel worthy, but because compassion naturally flows from awareness. Meditation, each act done with care, mindfulness, and serenity. Through this understanding, helping others becomes neither a burden nor an escape, becomes a quiet joy, the joy of living in tune with truth, and too little, guided by wisdom and love. This is the way of balance, the way of the Buddha, the timeless middle path that keeps compassion alive and the heart free. In the path of compassion, mindfulness is the light that guides the way. Intentions can lead to consumption and exhaustion. When helping others, it is natural to feel empathy, to wish to ease their pain and share their burden. But in the absence of mindful awareness, compassion may turn into attachment. Buddhism teaches that true compassion must arise from a mind that understands boundaries, the natural space where kindness and clarity coexist. To gentle lines that preserve harmony between giving and being. A mindful boundary is not built from fear or selfishness. It is shaped from wisdom and understanding. It allows one to love deeply without losing oneself. In helping others, between sharing their suffering and becoming consumed by it, the Buddha never taught his followers to carry the pain of others within their own hearts. He taught them to understand suffering, to see its causes, and to respond with calm insight. You recognize that the emotions of others belong to them. You may feel compassion for their struggles, but you do not need to make their suffering your own. In daily life, this wisdom is often forgotten. When we see someone hurting, we instinctively want to fix. Impulse. If we take on their pain without mindfulness, we begin to lose our center. We feel tired, frustrated, and drained, and soon we discover that we have less to give. The Buddha compared the mind to a bowl of water. Reflects everything perfectly. When disturbed, it cannot show the truth. Mindful boundaries keep that water still. They allow us to see suffering clearly without being stirred by it. Full boundaries is awareness of your inner state. Before helping anyone take a breath, observe what you are feeling. Compassion, anxiety, pity, or a sense of duty. Not all emotions that look like compassion are rooted in clarity, because we cannot tolerate the discomfort, or because we fear being unkind if we say no. But mindful compassion does not arise from discomfort or guilt, it arises from wisdom. When you help from mindfulness, your actions flow naturally because it is wholesome, not because you are compelled. Many people believe that to be truly kind, one must give endlessly, but Buddhism teaches the importance of balance. Boundaries are not a lack of compassion. Just as the body needs rest between efforts, the heart needs space between acts of giving. When you overextend yourself, you are not practicing compassion, you are practicing attachment. True compassion understands timing and capacity. When to pause, when to speak, and when to remain silent. Mindful boundaries are also about understanding your role in the lives of others. You can guide, inspire, and support, but you cannot walk another's path for them. Each being has their own karma. If you take on their responsibilities, you interfere with their natural process of growth. Wisdom means allowing others to experience the consequences of their actions while remaining available with compassion if they seek guidance. Recuing, it means standing beside someone with understanding in relationships. Mindful boundaries protect both sides. Without them, we risk enabling dependency, where one person becomes reliant on the other for strength or happiness. When we help others, our goal is not to make them dependent on us, but to help them discover their own inner strength. If our compassion creates dependency, then it has become unwise. Mindful boundaries ensure that our kindness empowers. Candle lighting another candle. The first flame does not diminish, it simply shares its light. But if the flame leans too far, it risks extinguishing itself. Helping others should be like lighting candles, sharing warmth without burning out. Energy, time, and peace are also sacred. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is knowing what is beneficial and what is not. When you say no with awareness, it is not rejection, it is compassion for both yourself and the other. Absorb in. When someone shares their pain, it is easy to internalize their emotions. You may feel their sadness as if it were your own, but mindful listening means being present without losing your stillness. And words can be heard, felt, and released. You do not hold on to their sorrow. You let it pass through your awareness like clouds across the sky. This practice of mindful listening helps others feel understood while keeping your heart at peace. Through meditation, you learn to observe sensations, thoughts, and feelings without clinging. You watch anger, grief, and joy come and go like waves on the shore. When you carry this awareness into your interactions, without drowning in it, your stillness becomes their refuge. The Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. This peace, when maintained through mindfulness, becomes your boundary. By opening it with understanding. Mindful boundaries are not rigid. They move and shift with the situation, guided by awareness. Sometimes compassion asks you to stay close. Sometimes it asks you to step back. Wisdom knows the difference, or refuses to grow. Stepping back may be the most compassionate act. It gives them space to face their reality and find their strength. Compassion without boundaries can turn into enabling, which delays both your peace and theirs. Who cared for a sick fellow monk tirelessly. Day and night he served him, washing his wounds and feeding him. One day the Buddha saw this and praised the monk, saying that caring for the sick is like caring for the Buddha himself. The monk's that compassion must be balanced with mindfulness. The monk cared wisely, not out of guilt, not out of attachment, but from pure awareness. He knew when to rest and when to act. His compassion was deep, but his mind remained peaceful. Complete presence without emotional entanglement. When you practice mindful boundaries, you begin to notice subtle signs of imbalance, tension in your body, irritability, fatigue, or emotional heaviness are crossing your inner limits. Instead of ignoring them, acknowledge them with kindness. Take time to restore yourself. Meditation, silence, time in nature, or even a simple mindful breath can replenish your energy. And Buddhism teaches that self-care is part of the path, not separate from it. It is also important to release the desire for approval. Many people help others because they fear being seen as selfish if they refuse. With regards to compassion, they are forms of attachment. The Buddha encouraged right intention, to act with purity, not for praise or recognition. When you have mindful boundaries, you act because it is wholesome, not because you need to prove kindness. This freedom to remain genuine. Another dimension of mindful boundaries is detachment from outcomes. When you help someone, you may hope they will change or heal, but if they don't, frustration arises. Is to offer the seed, not to force it to grow. Whether it blooms on depends on conditions beyond your control. When you act without attachment to results, you protect your peace. Your compassion becomes unconditional, or choosing who deserves it. In every moment of helping, remember that both you and the person you help are learners in the same journey of awakening. Mindful boundaries honor that equality. For helping others as inferior, for needing help, you simply share the path, offering light when needed and accepting help when it is your turn to receive. Boundaries then become expressions of mutual respect and understanding. Compassion and boundaries are not two different things, they are one. Mindfulness gives compassion its shape, and compassion gives mindfulness its warmth. Together, they form the foundation of wise service, helping without attachment. When you walk this way, every act of kindness becomes a meditation, every interaction a teaching, and every boundary a reflection of awareness. In the quiet rhythm of life, every being seeks peace. To care for others with genuine compassion, one must first learn to care for oneself with the same tenderness. In Buddhism, self-care is not an act of selfishness, but an expression of wisdom. A weary mind cannot offer clarity, and an exhausted heart cannot share true love. The path of service, when walked without mindfulness toward one's own well-being, soon turns into imbalance and suffering. Thus, an invisible act of service to all beings, the Buddha's path was one of deep moderation and awareness. Before his enlightenment, he experienced the extremes of pleasure and self-denial. When the body is weak, the mind cannot see clearly. When the heart is burdened, compassion cannot flow freely. After accepting nourishment and regaining strength, and found awakening through calm presence, not through self-punishment, his realization showed that the body and mind are instruments of understanding, and both must be cared for if wisdom and compassion are to blossom. Self-care, in its truest form, it is the awareness of one's needs, emotions, and energies. Many people forget to listen to themselves because they are too busy listening to others. They think that kindness means always saying yes, always giving, always being available. Yet, their help loses warmth and authenticity. Buddhism teaches that mindfulness is the guardian of balance. To be mindful of oneself is to notice when you are tired, when you are overextended, and when your mind has become restless or clouded. Return to presence. When you take time to rest, meditate, or nourish your body, you are not abandoning your duty to others, you are strengthening it. A calm mind brings clarity, and a balanced heart radiates peace naturally. Reflects the moon perfectly. But if the water is disturbed and breaks, in the same way, when you neglect your inner calm, your compassion becomes distorted. You may act with good intentions, yet your actions carry traces of fatigue. The practice of self-care keeps the lake of the mind clear so that compassion free flows. Self-care in Buddhism is not indulgence or luxury. It is discipline guided by wisdom. It includes right rest, right nourishment, right speech, and right association. When the Buddha Noble Path, he emphasized right life, right effort, and right mindfulness, all of which involve caring for the conditions that support awakening. To eat mindfully, to sleep sufficiently, rather than turmoil, these are acts of self-care that sustain both body and spirit. By protecting these conditions, you protect your ability to serve others wisely. In modern life, the world often glorifies exhaustion as a sign of dedication, constant giving. But Buddhism teaches that overexertion is not virtue, it is ignorance of the middle way. When your body and mind are strained, suffering increases, and your ability to help decreases. When knowing when to stop, when to rest, and when to restore the energy of mindfulness, to neglect this is to misunderstand compassion itself. There's a parable about a monk who lived in a monastery on a mountain. For the others, he did this with devotion, but over time his strength faded. One day, as he struggled to lift the bucket, he slipped and fell. The abbot came and said gently, "My child, even the strongest tree must pause to gather rain," giving from an empty bowl. The monk learned that rest was not separate from service, but part of it. When he began to care for his body and mind, his service became steady and joyful once more. When we care for ourselves, if an unbalanced person spreads imbalance, if the mind is restless, it shares restlessness. If it is peaceful, it spreads peace. In a family, in a community, or in a workplace, the energy of one person affects many. By cultivating ethical living and wise reflection, you silently serve everyone you encounter. Your calmness becomes a refuge for others, so your smile becomes a teaching. Without speaking, you remind them that peace is possible. Reliefectionism and the illusion of control. Many who serve others feel they must carry every burden, that if they stop, things will fall apart. This attachment arises from ego disguised as responsibility. Cling is the root of suffering. When you cling to the idea that only you can help, you create pain for yourself and limit the growth of others. Wisdom sees that life flows through countless causes and conditions. You are one part of that flow, not its master. Letting go becomes an act of faith, a trust that the Dharma is always unfolding. Mindful self-care includes awareness of thoughts. Often the mind becomes a harsh critic. Caring for oneself is self-centered. These thoughts are born from ignorance of interdependence. Buddhism teaches that all beings are connected. Your well-being contributes to the well-being of others. When you maintain peace within, taking care of your mind through meditation, gentle speech, or moments of silence is not withdrawal. It is preparing the ground for compassion action. Meditation itself is the highest form of self-care. It purifies the heart and nourishes the spirit. Sitting quietly, observing the breath, you reconnect with their true nature, spacious, calm, and compassionate. In that stillness, you touch the source of all healing. Each mindful breath replenishes the energy that endless doing has scattered. It is a return to that as to being. From this beingness, all wise action arises. Another aspect of self-care is forgiveness. Many carry guilt for past mistakes or for not being able to help enough. Such guilt weighs heavily on the heart. A moment can be redone. The only wise act is to learn to forgive and to move forward with clarity. Forgiveness toward oneself softens the heart, making compassion natural again. When you release self-blame, self-care also means choosing what to take in, not only food but impressions, words, and company. The Buddha advised seeking Kalaka, amid noble friends whose presence encourages virtue and wisdom. Chaos drains mindfulness. Being in peaceful environments, reading words of truth, and engaging in wholesome conversations all nourish the inner being. Just as the body needs pure food, the mind needs pure impressions. Caring for the body, one must remember it as a vessel of practice. In the monastery, even sweeping the floor or cleaning the bowl is done mindfully. Acts of respect for the conditions that support awakening. And cleanliness honors this vessel. It is not attachment to the body, but gratitude for its service. When the body is healthy and calm, meditation deepens and service becomes effortless. Silence is another form of self-care. Scattering attention, moments of silence allow the heart to rest. In silence, you hear the whisper of wisdom that daily noise conceals. Retreats, solitary walks, in other words, are sacred spaces where the mind renews itself. The Buddha often withdrew into solitude, not to escape others, but to recharge the energy of mindfulness so he could return to serve more fully. For neither too little nor too much. Striving excessively leads to tension, too little leads to stagnation. The middle way applies here as well. You practice diligently but gently, balancing activity with rest. You do not force progress. It becomes a rhythm of giving and receiving out of stillness. This balanced effort sustains long-term well-being. When one neglects self-care, compassion eventually turns into resentment. You begin to feel unappreciated, exhausted, or bitter. It is essential in spiritual life. To maintain joy, you must nurture yourself. Joy is the fragrance of a heart in balance. It cannot bloom in soil that is dry or overworked. By watering your own roots with mindfulness, they arise naturally, benefiting all who come near you. Self-care is also an act of humility. It acknowledges that you are human, subject to fatigue, emotion, and limitation. The Buddha never demanded perfection from his followers. Your needs without judgment is an act of truthfulness. When you accept your humanness, you connect them more deeply with others, for you see that everyone shares the same fragility and longing for peace. The more you practice self-care, and the deeper your compassion grows. You no longer help others from obligation, but from abundance. Your kindness is not forced. It flows like a spring that renews itself. Take care of yourself are not two paths, but one. Every moment you rest mindfully, every time you breathe with awareness, every gentle act toward yourself becomes an offering to the world. In the end, living with balanced mindfulness and love, it means realizing that the peace you cultivate within radiates far beyond you. By nurturing your own well-being, demonstrating through your presence that compassion begins with oneself and blossoms outward endlessly. When the heart is rested, when the mind is clear, and when the body is cared for, service becomes effortless and luminous. That exists when wisdom and compassion unite. In the journey of helping others, the essence of compassion lies not in losing oneself, but in awakening to the deep truth of balance, awareness, and wisdom. Compassion does not exhaust the heart, it renews it. The one who walks the path of mindful service knows that love without attachment and kindness without self-identity are the purest forms of giving. Such a person, after ignore, becomes trapped in it. They remain steady like a lamp that gives light to others yet is never diminished. Through understanding, one learns that every being moves through their own cycle of learning and transformation. Their fate or erasing their pain, but about walking beside them with presence and care. The awakened heart recognizes that the world's sorrow cannot be carried by one person, but it can be softened by countless acts of wise compassion. They give rise to peace, a peace that flows silently, touching lives without expectation or desire for reward. In this silence of understanding, the helper and the helped are not two. There is only the gentle movement of kindness, beyond the boundaries of self and other. This is the harmony of the middle way, where one serves without attachment, loves without possession, and acts without seeking outcome. Such compassion becomes boundless. Equally, to not lose yourself while helping others is to see with the eyes of wisdom and to feel with the heart of compassion. It is to live in a way that your actions arise from peace and return to peace. When the heart is free of ego, giving becomes its own reward. This is the path of inner balance, the stillness within movement, and the love that never fades, the timeless path of compassionate awareness.